Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the R&D Podcast. I am your host, Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about people trying to date you that are actually still living with their air quotes exes.
Woo! This is a good one. So I had a situation where I got a phone call from a friend of mine that was asking me if I had given someone advice, because this person was dating somebody that was still living in the house with their so-called ex-husband, and they were basically asking me, do I think that they're still together? And all I said was, if they're still living together, they're still together. I don't care if they're saying we live in separate beds, we're in separate bedrooms, whatever. I really truly believe in my heart of hearts that you have to accept that if you are being with someone that still lives with their ex, they're still with their ex. And so not until that person decides to keep it moving. And I always say this also, we've said this on the podcast in previous episodes, that I do believe that there is a waiting factor, that you don't just jump into the next relationship, because you know what, hurt people, as they say. Yeah. And I definitely think that, people just need to be honest. You know what? I am still in this situation that I need to get out of. And as soon as that person's out of that relationship, you need to still give them healing time. And if you are still available, and if he's available, and you guys maybe can have a meeting of the minds, maybe then you could possibly see what happens. But oftentimes people, it's that famous, they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yes.
I think you got to get really intentional with when someone says, oh, yeah, well, we're going through a divorce, or we're going through a separation, but we are still living together. Or sometimes people do it because of financial reasons. I'm sorry, if you're making that leap of faith, you got to take that leap of faith and keep it moving.
So I was telling you, I had a personal experience, a gentleman that had known me for quite a while. And that's all I'll say about that. And he invited me out, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize this person was interested in me. Okay. Invited me out. So I was a little bit open to it, I think, because there's a little bit of that familiarity, because I kind of knew him. And then so it was like, okay, what's the plan? And the plan was, and I'm sorry, the plan was, well, we can go, but we have to go at this time because, with this, and there was like a son and like disabilities and all these kinds of things. Well, long story short, I guess, he still lived with his wife. And so when I asked, because he said, I'm going through a separation, I said, where's she living? And he's like, no, in the house. Yeah. And I was like, what
She's
house?
in the basement.
Okay. And I was like,
we're in California. We ain't got basements.
Yeah. And I was like, what house?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, no, it's like, at my house, like at the house, because, it's too hard. Like you said, financially, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking,
no.
Then these people immediately know, for one.
Yeah.
And number two, you can't, it's like a high school kid, it's like a college kid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, mom, can I move her in? Like, you can't afford to be in this relationship if like you got to move her into like your mama's house, right? And that's a whole other story. And I get that there's other reasons to do that, to save money for a house, whatever. But in this case, grown ass people over 40, no.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that if you know that it's over and, you're still trying to... See, a lot of the time what happens, in my opinion, Rachel, is that respectfully, people don't leave each other until they know that the next thing is secure. So oftentimes they're kind of figuring out, they're figuring out their footing. Okay, so if I take this leap of faith and I go with this person, is this person going to be my next person? Because oftentimes people don't want to be alone, especially if they've been in long-term relationships. They're literally looking for their next lily pad to kind of jump into.
Or worse, here's the thing. It could be that they're actually married and the wife doesn't even know that they're separating. Like, this is like a narrative he brought up.
Right,
like,
of course.
Oh, we're going through a separation.
You hear this crazy stories like with Scott Peterson talking about she died. I know that's kind of extreme, but come on. For real. Like,
hey, Delia always takes us all the way left into the desert. No, but like...
But it's real. Like,
they make up stories.
His story, this guy was living in fantasy land. Let her rest in peace. It's not to make joke out of that, but I'm just saying, like, this man really started to believe his own lies, where he's like, you know what, she died. He was already foreseeing that. Or there's people that, actually start to say, you know what, she's crazy. Or, like I had a neighbor of mine that was talking about, his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend and how crazy she was. Next thing you know, he marries her, then they're now not going to be together. And so, people make up these crazy ass like stories, and, they start to say, oh, we're not together just because you had a big fight. Like, if you're still living together, you're still together. So I really, truly, I think it's important to, really hone in or really break down those questions and answers. I know in the past I've shared this so many times, especially if you're this is for the people that are in new relationships, because you oftentimes you don't know if they're lying to you. So there's a way to actually, kind of figure out by going on Spokio and seeing like where they live, if things kind of show up and pop up, because sometimes people are lying to you, especially if you're meeting someone randomly. Maybe they don't want to have you go over to their house and they're saying, oh, we're going through a separation, but then there's an ex-wife that still lives there supposedly, or the ex-husband still lives there supposedly. And I do think that when you're getting into these new relationships, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that in fact that is true, because oftentimes, you're going to be the last one to find out, because that's how it happens.
There's so many reasons why the guys won't file for divorce, but then they're still just there. And I was seeing something with, I don't know if it was, Jordan. Who am I trying to say?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. It might have been with him, and they were talking about the statistics of how, in 90% of the cases, it's the women that are leaving and ending the marriages, and right. Not the men. But it's because men will stay in absolute dreadful marriages. They will stay. They'll stay because of finances. They'll stay because of convenience. They'll stay because of kids. They'll stay because of families. There's so many reasons why they'll stay, but they won't stay loyal. They'll step out of the marriage, but they're not going to file for divorce and end it all, where women will, right? Women reach their limits and they go, I was all in on this and it wasn't good enough and I'm out. If a woman doesn't feel good enough, she's out, right?
Right.
And so I think that what happens is the men are like the quiet quitting inside the marriage,
right? And
now they're already going out and acting single. They go to the bar. They go to the bar and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up with you?" And doing things at the parking lot and acting completely single, because in their mind they've already quiet quitted the marriage, but yet still show up with that Valentine's card.
Oh my gosh!
Still show up with that anniversary bouquet of flowers, It is the oddest thing, but I personally can speak from experience on this, having someone who was very married, living in the home with this woman, with the kids in the house, talking about he's dating. They're separated and he wants to take me on a date. And I was like, what in the world?
What is wrong with you? Yeah, but going back to what you were saying about women filing for divorce, so this is another thing that I had read, statistically, when men file for divorce, I think it's 30 or 40% of the men that do file for divorce, they divorce because a woman was cheating on them, believe it or not. And it's usually, for women, in my opinion, and from what I've seen in the past, a lot of the time, we kind of do the little slap on the hand. I'll give you an example. Cardi B is a perfect example right now. I mean, she's forgiven him time and time again. Now he got caught cheating, kind of on a live video, but my point to that is that now she's done with the marriage, supposedly, that she's filing for divorce because she already forgave him a few times, and she's like, all right, this is done. Now, when it comes to men usually do not forgive, the first or second demise. It's like on the first demise, they're done. They're going to file for divorce.
The egos are destroyed at that point.
And more than, 9 times out of 10, if you ever hear a man file for divorce, that's probably because she was cheating on him. Yeah. Because most of the time, men can tolerate, the fact that we are, our everything is, our hormones are a whole roller coaster. There's a whole lot of things that happen in relationships, marriage. But I think when it comes to a demise in a marriage, that's when a man will be like,
I think that men understand that their own nature, right? Their own nature is they can be madly in love with their wife and love their family and still go be attracted to someone else and go be intimate with them. They also seem to understand that a woman does not. A woman, her love is, all tied to the physical action as well and stuff like that. So if she steps out and is intimate with another man, that the love has left her, essentially. That's the sort of consensus of psychology, right? Is that women can't separate the two and that men can.
Right.
So I think that when a man is married to a woman who does that, he has no choice but to accept the dagger. There's ego, right? Another man was where his wife was or whatever.
Yes.
But I think there's the other part of recognizing oh my gosh, she actually doesn't love me. Right. And as women, when you get cheated on, you think that I thought he loved me, and he's over there I do. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I just still wanted to, do a dipstick over there and here and there. So that's
but
why.
This is a very real thing, ladies. If you're
true.
Out in the world, no matter what age you are, there are men of all economic statures, by the way, who are acting very, very single in the world, at a lounge, in the office, wherever it may be. They're acting very, very single, and yet might be actually very married.
You know, this is kind of within this subject. Before we close out, I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I definitely think that, you know, when you are in a marriage and you say, you know, we need time apart, ladies, I just want you to know that when you say I need time apart or I need that break, men aren't thinking we need a break as in like I'm going to, you know, not be with other people, you know, unless you guys actually say, okay, we're taking a break without any kind of other people around or any.
He's very single. The moment he steps over that threshold, he is.
That's
he is
what it is.
Single and ready to mingle.
That's it.
While you're at home putting tears in your bonbon, trying to heal and grow. Yes. That's not what he's doing.
That's not what it is. And so you have to be very mindful what comes out of your mouth and if that's truly what you want. And so at the end of the day, don't be the person that is saying, oh, well, we're going through a divorce or we're going through a separation, even though you're taking time apart. I really do believe that you have to be mindful and you have to do your due diligence. A lot of people out there are going to lie and say, you know what, we're going through some things. And maybe if you were able to really see the way that they're living, you know, it may not be that bad. And it's just that he's trying to find the next footing or the next thing. Like, how do I find that one girl and I can leave this girl?
It's a soft place to land.
Exactly. You know? So you got to be very mindful about that. So anyway, that's all I got.
Ask for the divorce paper. Just be like proof of the filing.
I mean, the divorce decree, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the divorce decree. Send me a link to the county clerk's office.
Yeah, let me know where I can find it. Because if you are divorced, then you are divorced. And if you're not, you shouldn't be playing.
Yep, that's it.
And that's all we got. So cheers.
All right, watch yourselves.